G. Salvail. You have mentioned the RPF often, and at least once you mentioned the RPF's RPF. What does one have to do to get on the RPF's RPF? And how does one get off it? How does it differ from the RPF? All right, the RPF, Rehabilitation Project Force, which is the sort of Chinese totalitarian re-education camp that the Sea Org uses to re-indoctrinate its members who have failed miserably, or what they say have committed treasonous acts against the Sea Org and so deserve to really be kicked out of the Sea Org. But instead, they're going to extend them this, this olive branch and give them a chance to rehabilitate themselves. And that's why it's called the Rehabilitation Project Force. And I've discussed this in detail. I'm not going to go into all of it again. Now, the RPF's RPF is a disciplinary unit within the RPF. It's also called the RZAR, because nobody likes rocking around going RPF's RPF, RPF's RPF. So they just shortened it to RZAR. And if you're on the RZAR, if you get put on the RZAR, that means you are already on the RPF, and you screw up or mess up on something, or you want to leave the RPF, you want to leave the Sea Org. But in either of those cases, you are considered to have been committing treasonous acts towards the RPF. And you're already on your last line, you're on your last chance to be a Sea Org member and to remain a Scientologist in good standing. And now you're blowing it even harder. So then you go to the RZAR. And on the RZAR, the schedule is tightened up even a little bit more. Instead of 20-minute meals, you get 15-minute meals and, this sort of thing. And the RZAR tends to deal with RPF maintenance. Like, for example, the laundry. All these people are running around on the RPF doing all this hard physical labor. They don't do their own laundry. The RZAR does it. Or if the RZAR is emptied out, then a unit of the RPF is selected to do everybody's laundry, for example, right? The RZAR would also sometimes set up for meals because when we would go in to eat food, we would have to get, everything, the main mess where everybody eats would be clean from the earlier settings. And so we'd have to get plates and get utensils and get the dishes and the food served up. And so the RZAR would sometimes do that. Again, if the RZAR was emptied out, then it was up to what would happen is one person from each unit would be sent early to help set up for the meal. And even that was rigorously controlled, so you had to run in order to make it on time and get everything to be done. The RZAR is sort of like a little mini RPF within the RPF. So you have to do amends work, you have to make up the damage you've done to the RPF by doing Hubbard's lower conditions, these condition formulas. We've talked about these before. They're steps that you take in order to improve your lot in life. And when you're in a lower condition, that means you are below non-existence, you're treasonous, you are a liability or an enemy of the group. These are all the names of these lower conditions. If you want to leave, you're called, it's said that you're being in doubt. You don't know whether you want to be there or not, and then you got to get that sorted out for yourself. So each of these conditions has a series of steps that you do, and you have to go through those steps. And the RZAR has time each day to work on that. And the thing about the RZAR is when you're on the RPF, you have a twin. You work with somebody. If you go to the RZAR, your twin goes too. So for example, when I was on the RPF, I had a twin who I was working with, and he suddenly originated that he wanted to leave. He didn't want to be there anymore. He was sick of it. It was grinding. It was going nowhere. And so he wanted to leave the Sea Org entirely. He went to the RZAR. I went with him. Now, it was recognized that I hadn't messed up. He was the one who wanted to leave. I hadn't given up. So I only was there for about a week, getting through my steps and trying to help him to, salvage him to stay, but he didn't want to, and I was kind of okay with that. So I finished, and I had to, the last step of the liability formula that you do after you've made up the damage to the group, in this case, the group being the RPF, you have to ask the permission of everybody on the RPF to be accepted back in. And only by getting a majority of them agreeing that you're okay to come back, do you get okay to go back to the RPF. Similarly, when you graduate the RPF and you go back out into the Sea Org world, and now you're back to being a Sea Org member again, you also have to do that liability formula and do those steps and get signatures from people in the Sea Org to be accepted back. And once that liability is done, that's really the end of the RPF for you, because now you're no longer in this lower condition. All right, so that's kind of the deal with the RSR. I hope that answers your question.